What do you think you need or that you must have in place in order to be successful at all? We're going to take some things apart in today's interview with the unconventional entrepreneur, Alexandra Nolan.
As I started doing all these, new businesses growing and evolving, I started writing down these different types of things. Like, remember last time when you did this and you didn't do this, what happened? This time you need to do this. All of these things it's like having a high school relationship and you get super giddy and excited about it. And then when that wears off, you want to do the next thing, right? I mean, I don't know if that's a good analogy, but you know what I mean?
Welcome. Thanks for joining in with us. Now, what do you think you need or that you must have in place in order to be successful at all? Really, I want you to have a think about that. I once helped raise funds from friends and family, and this is when the internet was an embryo, meaning I didn't use it. All I had was a spreadsheet. That's it. And I didn't know anyone with money, and I definitely didn't know any millionaires. So what do you think I did? Well, I raised $3 million in 6 months. I simply didn't think I needed anything else to do the job. I can talk, and that was it. So I'll ask you again, what do you think that you need in order to be successful? Well, we're going to take some things apart in today's interview with the unconventional entrepreneur, Alexandra Nolan. And while we're at it, this is all about helping you and your friends turn your vision into reality. We want to help you get very successful at growing your business to a high sustainable level. In fact, we're going to help turn you into an elite entrepreneur. Well, meet Alexandra Nolan. In her 20s, she was jet-setting around the country, making an insane amount of money, and you would consider that she really had made it. All her friends and family did, but she wanted to be an entrepreneur and work on what she really wanted to get out of life and not just make money for the sake of making money, which actually is a little bit boring. We've talked about that enough. She was aware of her potential and knew she needed to take the next step on her journey and quit that job. Unbelievable so far, isn't it? Well, I think that says enough. Let's get into it. She's going to tell us the rest. Hi, Alexandra. Welcome to the Tony DUrso Show.
Hi, Tony. Thank you for having me.
The honor is mine. We're all looking forward to understanding the mindset of the unconventional entrepreneur. And it's a very kind of almost a static title, but there's so much more into it. Usually we talk about, making life hacks and doing this and doing that. But this is very unique, and I like it. I want to really get into this mindset because it's so different, and you've created such a great success that this little title just doesn't seem to do it. So let's try this, Alexandra. Let's take it from the top. How did it all start for you? What's your backstory?
Oh, it's a crazy backstory, so buckle up. I started in corporate America. I got my undergrad degree in 2008. So it was when, that was a hard time for college graduates to get a job. The market was crashing. So I was working at Macy's at the Dior makeup counter doing makeup. And I loved it, but I also was, really wanting that corporate job. That was my first dream of getting my degree, is to get a corporate job. And one of my clients happened to work for a major paper company here in the United States. And she came in a few times. And finally, one day she said, you talk about wanting to work for corporate. I work for, this major paper company, and they have an internship. You should apply. I know the person that's looking for interns, and I can help you out. And I said, great. Okay, I'll do that. And I applied, and I started my career in the market research department at this paper company, and climbed my way up. I was there 6 years, ended up doing internal customer service sales, then external sales. That was great. I was 25 when I got that job. And just to give you an idea, I had, if you can think of California and then the city of Baltimore, and draw a line just from the state of California all the way to the city of Baltimore, all of the states below that was my territory. So I was traveling at that age by myself, jet setting around. I think the first year I did 280 flights. It was a a Monday, well, really a Sunday through Friday type of job. I was home 2 days a week if I was lucky. And it was great. But I had this internal pull always really start my own thing and become an entrepreneur. And so I decided while I worked there, I would start a cosmetic line. And that's what I did. I started a cosmetic line. That led into, it started to grow. I had to make that decision that most entrepreneurs have to make, where you have a full-time job, but you have a company that has reached its max potential because of time constraints. And I had to make the decision, am I going to, jump off the cliff, take the risk and put all of my eggs in my own basket, or am I going to choose safety and the safe route? And ultimately, I decided to choose me. And I took my cosmetic line to the full extent, got a brick and mortar store and opened up a boutique / cosmetic studio. And that's where it all started. I snowballed into several different businesses from that point. I've sold the boutique and I'm doing so many other things as of now.
What an interesting story. Now, you help entrepreneurs create successful businesses in like 6 weeks. Where did the vision come for you to do that as a business?
Well, so really, when I started my own business, I didn't do a lot of research. I didn't take the steps. They teach you the business plan steps in business school and all of that. And I kind of just bypassed all of that because if you're an entrepreneur, you can probably relate to the instant gratification. Like I had this idea, I wanted to do it now instantly. I didn't want to plan. And that is one of the main reasons why I created a plan for people like me. I just went headfirst into this business. I was lucky that it succeeded, but there were many times where I, worried. Like I know what Chapter 13 bankruptcy means because I had to look at it because so many times I would start have an idea and jump headfirst without a plan. Ultimately, like I said, the boutique thrived, survived. I've sold it. I ended up starting when I had the boutique for marketing purposes, I started a blog to try to sell my clothes. And that turned into a full-time secondary business. So when I sold the boutique, I jumped over into doing the influencer thing on Instagram. I still do that work with large national brands at this point. But the whole time, as I'm making these steps into other businesses, I'm creating these little plans, and I didn't realize it. It's just I learned from scraping my knee and having to get back up. And so as I started doing all these, new businesses growing and evolving, I started writing down these different types of things. Like, remember last time when you did this and you didn't do this, what happened? This time you need to do this. And so at this point, I had over 10 years of experience, and I've got notebooks and notebooks of, social media plans, omni-channel plans, pricing for profit, all of these things. And I thought, I can put all of this into a book. It's already in all my notebooks and all my journals. I can put all of this into a book so that other people can do this successfully and not have to learn you're going to learn by trial and error, but not have to learn like I did, which is throw noodles at the wall and see what sticks. And the ones that stick, just go that way. Like I wanted to create something that was a little bit more foolproof, if you will, on the strategy.
That makes perfect sense. And that makes me beg the question, why? Why bother? Why do this? What was the purpose behind doing all this?
Well, I've learned, I thought my passion, don't get me wrong, I loved owning retail stores. I love branding. I love launching new business. I find the most exciting time is the first 6 months. I like to call it the honeymoon phase of launching a business. All of these things it's like having a high school relationship and you get super giddy and excited about it. And then like when that wears off, you want to do the next thing, right? I mean, I don't know if that's a good analogy, but you know what I mean? When that wears off, it's just like, oh, what's going to get me more excited? And that's why I would start another business and another brand. But through it all, what I learned that was consistent, that I didn't need that next entrepreneurial high, if you will, was that people would come to me. They would see, I post, like I said, on my Instagram, I'm posting behind the scenes. I'm posting different brands I work with, and also business tips and tricks and lifestyle hacks and all of these things. people would reach out and they would say, hey, they would send me a message and they would say, I'm thinking about starting this business. What do you think about this? Or what's one tip? And then it would turn into this long, month-long conversation back and forth. And before I knew it, I had, 15 to 20 people that I'm talking to at any given time. And I thought, this is my passion. My passion is starting and launching my own brands. It's actually starting and launching and helping just the whole idea of brands in general and helping other people with these crazy, unique, unconventional strategies. So that really is the why behind how I've transitioned. I'm still doing some of my other businesses, but I've carved out a big part of my time in business to help other people do the same.
We're speaking with the unconventional entrepreneur, Alexandra Nolan, and you can find her at citychicliving.com. Chic, that's C-H-I-C, citychicliving.com. Alejandra, I said, we'll take that out.
That's okay.
I needed a blooper. Okay. Pause.
It's fine. I mean, I've been called Alejandra before. We go to Mexico all the time. So it didn't even register in my head.
Alexandra, we're entrepreneurs, we're business owners, so I would love for you to help us learn. You've got so much that you can share. And one of the first things that caught my eye is that you teach tools on how to discover our entrepreneurial skill set. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. So like I said, just through I'm not a psychologist and I don't claim to be or have all of the right answers, but through the years of doing this, I've learned and helping other people launch their business. I've learned there are 8 key elements, which I talk about in the book. So if you get the book, you can learn all about it. But there are 8 key elements. I call them elements. Skill sets, personality. I forget, other people don't know what elements are. I explain all of that in the book, but that an entrepreneur must have or master. So we're all born with these personality traits. We all have them, but our level of mastery may be lower or higher compared to others. And so in the book, I teach people what these skill sets or traits are. And then there's other QR codes in the book. You can scan a QR code and take the quiz and see where your level of mastery is on each one. And then I give different activities that you can do to improve upon those things. Some of the activities, like communication, is a huge one. Some of all the activities under communication really don't have anything to do with business. It has to do with getting out of your element. And if you're registering low in the communication trait, different activities to get out there and put yourself out there and communicate in ways that you wouldn't otherwise communicate or put yourself out there in those instances before, to build that confidence and then your communication skill level. So that's just one of the 8 elements, but I like to teach people how to master these, because once you do, you can build the confidence and determination that you need to really succeed in your business journey.
I like that a lot. And in scanning through some of your material here, you talk about determination pointers for breaking free from the fear of failure. We all have a lot of that. I don't think I know anybody, that may or may not be said properly grammatically, but I don't think I know anybody who has not failed at least one time. And
Absolutely.
There's so much that we've learned from it. And I'd like to know about your determination pointers on this.
Yeah, so it's funny, the determination pointer, it's really simple, but it's also kind of a roundabout way of thinking about it. Obviously, knowing that failure you wouldn't be afraid of it if it isn't something that can, happen all the time, right? So the pointer there is to be okay with it, I will say most people, you're either a fight or flight kind of person, right? So if you're afraid of something, you're going to run from it. But the best way, or you can fight it. But to me, and I try to tell people all the time, the best thing is when you feel that fear, to sit with it and explore the feelings inside, and don't let it turn you away from your dream. Because the key is, and you've got to know this, is that if you are feeling fear of failure because of a business journey or an entrepreneurial idea, you are officially experiencing what every single entrepreneur on this planet, whether they want to admit it or not, experiences. So you have officially gone to step one of becoming a real entrepreneur. So really, it's not like, ooh, I'm scared, I need to run, I can't do this. You need to think in your head, okay, this is scary, but everyone else has felt it too. So I've put my first entrepreneur hat on. I'm feeling the fear, but that's what should push you and drive you to be successful and climb out of that. You fight it, like sit in it and then climb on out and fight it and just go on to the next thing. I always like to say, I like to remove failure from my vocabulary. So I'll sit in it, I'll be scared. And as soon as that feeling of failure gets in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna acknowledge it. And then I'm gonna remove it out of my head. No more thought of failure. Now press forward.
I like that. Feel the fear. It kind of gives you an adrenaline rush.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And sort of maybe on the flip side a little bit of feeling the fear and dealing with fear is you talk about overcoming opposition with confidence. That's a new one. I haven't heard it said that way before. Tell us more about that.
Okay, so that's almost the next step. Once you get out of the fear of failure and you start to I like to call it, and I talk about this in the book a lot, the confidence loop. So you get through the feeling of fear, you pursue the dream, you find a way to master it, and then you're like, oh, okay, I did that. And so you start to feel a little bit more confident, and then it circles right back around. You take the next level obstacle, you start becoming fearful of that obstacle, and then, you accomplish that and you're like, oh, okay, the confidence grows more and more. So as you hit these obstacles, you're building your confidence up to the point that the risk factor and the feeling of fear is so small by the time, you've done this 4 or 5 years. So you're overcoming with these obstacles and you're building confidence with the obstacles. So I feel like going through the hardships, staying determined, these are actually good things to build your unconventional mindset as an entrepreneur.
I kind of think as a concept here, like a tree or a bush that's just trying to thrive and it needs the water and it's forcing itself to grow. And I kind of have that sort of mindset here. It just kind of makes you push out. And if you have that confidence, that really helps a lot in overcoming that opposition. It's a very interesting point here. Lots more to it. So I like that. And I have some other things I want to go into. But before I do, you've got some really good tips on just getting things done, getting the job done, just doing business. I love to talk about some of those tips.
Well, okay. So there's nothing super fancy to this, but I even though, and it's funny, as an influencer, people would think I'm completely technologically savvy. I am to a certain level, but I also have a physical pen and paper journal that I use, planner, and I suggest everyone. That's one of my biggest things. When people are like, how do you organize yourself to get the job done? What's the first step? Invest in a planner, not just one you see at Walgreens and just pick up and run with. Research your planners. I know now by the way I work, I need a planner that's by the hour. So 6 a.m. all the way to like 9 p.m. I write in every day. The day before, I plan my day by the hour. It helps me and it seems like it's a little overkill, but it's not, because as an entrepreneur, your brain, I like to say I'm not very grounded. My feet I'm always kind of floating a little bit above the ground. So to have that structure there, it helps me stay on task. And I've been doing that now for 12 years. So that's tip number one for getting the job done. And number two, the two biggest ones, there's a lot more in the book, but another one that I missed the mark on for the first probably 2 years of being in business is to network. I mean, lean on other people, and I say that goes both ways. Don't ride on coattails, but lean on someone else and let them lean on you and share ideas back and forth, because you get so much more done in a year when there's more than one brain working at a project than you do with, 5. So, networking is huge to get the job done. It helps you get through your tasks a lot quicker. And it's not to say that you need to pull other people away from their businesses, but get 5 guys or gals that are like-minded that are non-competing businesses in your local community, meet up once a month and just, hey, what are you doing that works? Okay, cool. This works for me. And then, you can even do events together to get your customer bases together and kind of like exchange, kind of share customer bases and all of that. You get so much more done whenever you build a family in your, business.
I like that. I don't think anybody can get anything done all by themselves. It's just, you need somebody somewhere, you need support, you need people to help do anything. It's just, you need that. So yes, networking is so critical. Totally.
Absolutely.
Helps us all grow.
Absolutely.
And in going through your book here, you've got the 4 senses strategy. Can you talk about that and tell us?
Okay, so your show is actually the first show that I'm going to announce this on, since you asked about the 4 senses strategy. First of all, well, I'll go ahead and announce. I have started my official another new business this year that has everything to do with the 4 senses strategy, called the Aroma House. It's spelled Haus instead of House. But the Aroma House, and it's because I believe so much in this 4 senses strategy that I had to launch a business. I started studying sensory marketing in my PhD program, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's something here. I need to launch a business and jump on it. So let me tell you a little bit about the background as to how I got into this strategy. So when I had my clothing store, I had a friend who came into the store and she's like, I've got this business and that I'm, she's selling for this company, and we're going to scent your store. You're going to have your own signature scent in the store. So it's going to smell beautiful. And, it's going to be just this big, amazing thing. And I'm going to tell you all my degrees have been in marketing. And when she told me this, I was like, okay, I totally missed the mark, because I was like, this is probably not going to work. But because she was my friend, she doesn't know how life-changing that meeting was. Because she was my friend, I said, okay, I'll try it. I'm thinking in my head, I'll do it for a few months just to, throw her bone and get her some sales, but it's not going to stick. It was the biggest marketing strategy I have ever implemented. It was crazy. People were coming in off the street, first of all, because they were like, I could smell it after I left dinner. I was in like a square with a bunch of other businesses. I could smell this beautiful smell and I was drawn to it. And then they were like, I'd open the door and I'm like, oh my gosh, here's where the smell is. And they said that they just wanted to linger in it, and they wanted to walk around and look and just be in the smell. And then customers would come back and they would say, I would open my closet the next day after buying your clothes, and I felt like I stepped back into your store. I could just close my eyes and the smell hit me in the face from the clothes hanging in the closet. And I just, for a moment, I felt like I was in the ivory closet. And I thought, okay, there's all these ways to market to a customer to get them in your store. There's all these ways to influence their purchasing behaviors while they're in your store and their perception of your brand. But how do you infiltrate that mind space when they're not in your store? And the first thing everyone says is, oh, commercials, magazines. I'm like, yeah, but that's intrusive. We don't want to see the commercials. We don't want to see the magazine ads. You can have something scented of your brand. So your store is scented, and then they buy a product that is scented, and it instantly reminds them of your space and their experience with you. So that's how the 4 senses strategy started. We ended up branding lines of candles, body sprays, soaps. Like, it was insane. It became the #1 selling SKU in the store. And I knew there was something to it. So after selling the store, I sold it 3 years ago. I went back to get my PhD. I started doing sensory marketing, and I developed the 4 senses strategy that I talk about in the book. And it starts with that whole experience of scenting my store. The thing I thought would never work ended up being my future business.
That is absolutely brilliant. I love it. I'm going to have to figure out how to use that for my podcast.
It's funny. They said the future of scenting is to have a little thing that sits on top of your computer. And I'm going to die if this happens in the next 5 years, where you can be on a website, all of a sudden their scent goes into your space. Like if you're on Starbucks, the scent of coffee, and I'm like, here I am again saying that's probably not going to work. We'll see, maybe in 5 years.
It's very interesting you mentioned coffee because as soon as you said aroma house, I'm thinking coffee. Where's my
Yeah,
coffee smell?
smells like coffee. Yeah.
Very cool. I like that. Here's another one, very interesting, and you use it as an acronym, the word profit, the profit cost process. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So the whole book being unconventional strategies. In the business school world, they teach you very traditional strategies. How do you profit based on distribution costs, product costs, labor, all of the things that you initially think about when you're starting a business. But this is very simple. It gets in more detail in the book and really shows you how to do this. It lays it out. But to me, it's one thing we're missing is as business has really shifted from a product. Like most businesses, it's like product. How do you compete? The service part of it. You may be selling a product, but you have a service. So it's like, okay, so everybody gets, we need to enhance and elevate the experience. But what's one of the main ways to do that? Well, it's by having, employees or people or owners that are seen as, experts in the field, but we're not pricing for that. Oftentimes entrepreneurs will underprice themselves because they price for distribution, product, all of that. They don't price for their own expertise. And there's a price tag to that. You should be getting, you should be not only getting what you're worth, but you should be getting paid a premium for what you've spent so much time researching, going to school, building unique, innovative ideas, and sharing that with your customer. So in the profit cost model, I have a there on how you can price yourself as the expert, as the founder, and get your cut that way too. I guess you can call it a bonus. I mean, it's separate from your profits that you take home. It is a bonus based on your expertise as well.
Okay, lots to think about there. And definitely, if we go to citychicliving.com, we can get your book. We can find out where to get your book, right?
Yes, absolutely. On that site, there's a little tab and it says my book and this picture's there. And if you just click on it, you can get the book there. It's you can get it as a hard copy, or if you prefer to read on an iPad or Kindle, it's available as an ebook as well.
And the title of the book is The Unconventional Entrepreneur.
Yes.
Alexandra, let's talk about unconventional entrepreneurship, and let's try this. Can you tell us about the biggest failure that you've had in your life and how you've dealt with it?
Oh man, which one do I want to pick? There's so many. I'm trying to think of one. There are several that I've talked about in the past. I would probably say, and it's kind of personal, but also it has to do with business. And I've spoken a little bit about it before in a podcast, but I'll get into it a little bit more. So one of the biggest failures is not, and it's also a chapter in the book I talk about, never tipping the scales. It's about having work-life balance and family balance. And for me, as an entrepreneur, it's one of the biggest things especially when you start your business, it's something you're passionate about and you want to spend all your time there. And yes, you love your family and you love your kids, but you don't realize that you're providing for them, but mentally you could be neglecting mental needs because you're not present. So even when I wasn't at work, I was home working on work, and I could be sitting on the couch and my kids be right next to me and we could all be watching a movie, but really I'm just kind of check box working and not present in the situation. And so I went on that way for years. And this is my second marriage. I was married once before. And I will say, while there are two sides to every story, and there was definitely problems on both sides, I'll be the first one to raise my hand and say, I think one of my biggest problems was not being present. And I tipped my scales, so to speak, when I talk about it in the book. I allowed, instead of keeping it even, I allowed, work to take so much more of my time that I damaged relationships. And so I would say that I learned from that. I'm remarried and I make sure I stop at a certain time. My children are still young, which I'm so thankful that I realized this flaw, so to speak, or I'm not sure what you would call it, this imbalance while they were still young. Because now I have an 8-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 5-year-old. And I make sure that I take the weekends, I do things with them. I try to step away from work because it's so hard. It really is. It's so hard. And my husband will have to remind me, hey, it's Saturday, you're in your office. And I'll be like, oh, I was just putting something in here. I'll be right out. And I'm like, dang it, Alex, get off the computer, go in there, because it's something you're passionate about. But I learned from that, and I make time for those in my life. And that is a huge thing that I think all entrepreneurs should consider. Are they tipping the scales, and are they taking that their precious time that your family loves you? They want to be with you. Are they making time for that?
Very important. Very, very. We can too often forget about everything else because, especially if we really like what we're doing, which most of us entrepreneurs should be in that position, we'll just work 80, 100 hours a week and it's just keep going. So
Absolutely.
you have to know when to smell the roses, right?
Yes, yes.
And as we're entrepreneurs and we want to learn from you because you have a very unique style, unconventional. How about that? I'd like to talk about some of the biggest challenges. Maybe pick up one of your biggest challenges that you've had and how you dealt with it.
Okay, so this one would probably be a business challenge, and it was a good problem to have, but it was also hard. Deciding to sell my first big, well, I guess it wasn't my first big baby. My first big business baby was the makeup line, which turned into the clothing store, and I also launched a branded clothing line while I had that. So I had this world inside my store. And, that was what I thought I wanted to do forever. And it was hard because I told you a little bit about the influencer business, and I'll tell a little bit more because people seem to be interested, but it also, it segues into this, how I sold the store. I started doing doing the blog and doing Instagram posts just for marketing because I didn't really have any money for marketing. And that grew. It grew to the point where national brands were reaching out to me and wanting to work with me. And I kept thinking, no, I turned so much business down because I said, I'm not going to cannibalize my own business. I'm not going to sell your product when I don't carry it in the store and you want me to sell it on your site instead of my own site. And then my brain kicked in and said, wait a minute, I can rebrand. Instead of being the Ivory Closet blog, my business is called the Ivory Closet. I can call it something different, which is City Chic Living. And I will make two businesses. And so I did that. And that was the way I thought I was going to go forever. Like I said before, there comes a time when your business grows to a level where it's going to be capped unless it's like an inverted U. You get all the way to the top where it's like you can do the max that you can do, and it's just going to either stay there or go down, otherwise, or plateau. Otherwise, you need to free up that time so you can just make that line go straight to the top. And I realized, I'm like, the influencer business had very minimum overhead. My clothing store, I had to do $20,000 in sales a month to just before I even got a paycheck, So I started thinking about it, and I'm thinking, what's the smart thing here? And I thought, my blog doesn't make enough to cover that income that my store made. So I for the longest time, I'm like, I need the store. But then I realized if I sell the store, I'll have all this time to make up that difference. And so it was it's a hard, good thing because it was hard to make that decision. But also personally, as often as entrepreneurs do, it's hard to let go of something that may not, especially if it's your business, that may not be right for you. There was a season for it. The business was wonderful until I started having children. I had this other business that seemed to, like I said, low overhead. It was less stressful. And I was hanging on to this past thing, but the chapter was done. So I had to realize come to the realization that while this was incredible, it was a wonderful time. I write about that time in the book when I made the decision. I actually was crying as I was typing it out on the computer. I say that in the book. I'm crying right now as I write this because it just brought back so much emotion. But it was an obstacle. It's a hard thing for me to do. But it was okay. I acknowledged it, almost sat with it, closed it, started the new thing, and it ended up being wonderful and has snowballed into so many other projects since then, the book being one of them. I would have never had the book if I didn't give up something else on the back end.
Totally understand that one. It's amazing how we can let something go that is logical but not emotional. We don't think it's right. I mean, we think it's right logically, but it's emotional, and it turns out to be the best thing we ever did.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
It's hard. You just got to get through that emotional hard point. But yes.
Very good. And I think we have time for one more question. I'm just kind of skimming through your book. You've got so many things here. Here's something that caught my eye. A deep dive into the Omni-channel for small business.
Yes. So I love anything omni-channel. That was, when I was starting back, the whole word omni-channel was really big when I was getting my master's. And so I got really into it. So for those that don't know what the omni-channel is, and you'll recognize it right off the bat when I say this, Target, you've got the store, you've got the website. Most everybody has a store and a website. You now have the app. They've got emails, they've got social media. They have all of these they have all of these channels, let's say. And no matter which channel you're on, it's Target. They've branded so well that they don't even need to have the word Target. It's just a Target logo. It's funny. My kids, I was typing Target. I was texting someone, and my oldest son was looking over my shoulder. And you know how when you text something, it'll pop up an emoji. It popped up a Target emoji, and he looked at it, and it's not even the Target branded logo. And he goes, "Are we going to Target later?" And I was like, "No," but I'm like, they've branded themselves so well that even when it's not their platform, it's my text messaging, my kids thinking it's Target. So I talk about this in the book. Where do you need to be present as a brand first of all, to be seen as legitimate? I mean, if you're a business that doesn't have a website, it's unfortunate. I know they're expensive if you don't know how to design one, but you're not going to be seen as a legitimate business. I mean, I may see a business card laying there and I'm like, what business is this? And I go Google it and I don't find them. Oh, they're probably out of business. You have to be present there. You've got to be present on social media. Apps, that's a new thing. You've got to have an email newsletter. You've got to be present in pop-up events. I talk about all of these things to create this perfect package of an omni-channel experience that captures your customer when they're outside of your brand space, when they're on their phone, when they're at a completely different event that you've got a pop-up stand at. How do you put all of that together to create the full brand package?
That's deep. That's great. We all need that. We all need to really think along these lines. Once again, we spoke with the unconventional entrepreneur, Alexandra Nolan. You'll find her at citychicliving.com. Get her book. There's so much more. We just skimmed the surface on some of the points. Really very deep. Alexandra, thank you so much for sharing with us today. I really appreciate it. We really appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Hey, thanks for hanging out with me while I featured an elite entrepreneur who took her vision to reality. We spoke with the unconventional entrepreneur, Alexandra Nolan, and we talked about, the tools to discover our entrepreneurial mindset. We brought up and talked about determination pointers for breaking free from the fear of failure. Face your fear and get that adrenaline rush. She spoke about how to overcome opposition with confidence, gave us some tips to get the job done, talked about the 4 senses strategy, something kind of new she's just releasing, talked about the profit cost process and others. Tell me, what did we discuss that resonated with you? I'd love to hear. And please share this with a few friends to help them too. It's friends helping friends that help everybody succeed during our current tough times, if I can call it that. All right. Use this and let's help you move on your journey to success. Thanks. And remember, success awaits those who persevere and remain steadfast despite the odds. Sow good seeds. Do good deeds. And join me on the next episode of The Tony DUrso Show.